insomnia drug Ambien for sending out that initial tweet. So with me, Alice Stewart, a CNN political commentator who is the communications director for Senator Ted Cruz, Dean Obeidallah, he is a contributor for CNN Opinion and host of SiriusXM Radio's The Dean Obeidallah Show. So good to see both of you. Dean, to you first.
Sure.
We'll get to your piece that you wrote a little while in a second, but just on this massive pivot, claim of double standard from the White House, you say...
I say apparently Donald Trump still has a problem calling something that's racist. After Charlottesville, we had the same problem, went for days. Jake Tapper on this network during the campaign asked Donald Trump about David Duke. All of a sudden, he didn't know who David Duke is. Donald Trump is moving cultural norms backwards, while ABC is moving them forward by saying, if you're going to spew racism, we don't want you as part of our network anymore. While Donald Trump once again refuses to call it racist, and Sarah Huckabee Sanders, inappropriate is not racist. Say Donald Trump once, and I hope the media presses him, call it racist. It is racist, and I want the President of the United States to call things that are racist.
But he won't go there. And to Jim Acosta's point, he was shouting the question at the end, and it didn't get the answer. Well, why doesn't Donald Trump apologize for all of the things that he has said? How do you see it?
He will never do that. And if he came out and was critical of Roseanne Barr, it would be the height of hypocrisy based on a lot of the statements that he's made. Look, I applaud Sarah for saying that we don't defend the comments, but it would be helpful if they would denounce them. This is a very teachable moment for the president to say, look, this is not about political correctness. This is about human decency. You don't talk like this about people. You don't make these kind of disparaging statements and without having consequences. And clearly the president is not going to go there. His base is in his corner no matter how he responded to this, but it wouldn't hurt him at all for him himself to say, this is not acceptable, we cannot accept this. If you remember, after Roseanne Barr did the awful national anthem, grabbed her crotch and spit after singing the national anthem, at least President Bush had the decency to say, this is disgusting. And it would be helpful if the president did that. I don't expect we'll ever get there.
You had written a CNN op-ed. Let me just remind you of your words. What is surprising is the apparent blind eye turned by the people who have brought us this rebooted Roseanne, a decision that ABC may regret.
I said that last month.
You were right.
I was
right. B, when you look at Roseanne Barr's tweet and she talks about fighting for civil rights, I mean, what is she referring to?
That's absolutely untrue. Roseanne Barr has spewed anti-Muslim bigotry, which I documented, comments that were about Jews, even though she's Jewish, dressing up like Hitler and pretending to have cookies that are kids coming out of the oven like they're kids burned in the Holocaust. And Roseanne Barr, well, I didn't put in my article, I debated, called me personally names years ago simply because I'm Palestinian, wrote an article about being Palestinian, calling me anti-Semitic and essentially equated me with being a terrorist simply because of my heritage, nothing because I have said it. Then she blocked me as friends said, what are you saying about Dean? Why would you say this? Roseanne Barr has not pushed the conversation forward. She's demonized communities of color. She's demonized Muslims. And I cannot believe ABC hired her in the first place. That's the reality. That's the stunning part of all this. But I so applaud them for moving so briskly and quickly, sending a message that in America, we don't care what Donald Trump does. We're not going to have you work for our network spew this kind of hate.
But clearly ABC wanted to be inclusive. They wanted to tell the stories of people in this country who perhaps have been ignored, right? And in a sense, you know, you want to say kudos to them for doing that. And obviously it worked because 20 million people had been tuned in. But how do they engage in that section of America without being stung by something like this?
You don't let Roseanne Barr be the person that represents that swath of America. Look, I think the great thing about her show, I loved it back then, I loved it, the remake of it, I don't love what's happening now. She and that show gave middle America, blue-collar, working-class Americans a seat at the table in Hollywood. The entertainment world says, hey, we can entertain an idea, but it doesn't mean we have to accept it. And unfortunately, they took a gamble on someone they knew was a little kooky and a little out there and has done things that were off the charts before, and unfortunately they lost. But I applaud them for standing ground and not putting up with it.
A little kooky.
Right.
Or very.
But there should be entertainment that is conservative in focus. I'm a progressive, and I'm in the entertainment field as well as a radio show. There should be things. Just Roseanne was not the person for that. Let's have someone who's just a mainstream conservative and have that point of view on. In America, we should have all points of view in the entertainment world represented. That's the way it should be.
And I do think the litany of names that Sarah went down in the briefing, I think there is some media bias. There is some form of hypocrisy. And I think some of the people she meant, Joy Behar has said some horrible things, Keith Olbermann has said some horrible things, and others that ABC has given a platform. Kathy Griffin but they all paid a price. They've at least, except for Joy Behar. But I think the point is, this isn't the time to play whataboutism. This is the time to talk about what we're talking about right now, and that is racist comments that should not be tolerated, and we need to change the tone. We cannot normalize this kind of the conversation.
It can't be emboldened by the president. Absolutely not. And I think there are people out there who think they can get away with what Trump said, from demonizing a disabled person to horrible stuff about Muslims to Latinos, to Judge Curiel saying that he shouldn't be on his case because of Mexican heritage, is Latino, but he's born in America. But the people are out there thinking you can say this stuff. You can't. I had Anthony Scaramucci on my radio show about a month ago, and he told me, honestly, how he got fired. And John Kelly said to him, well, you said these curse words to a reporter. And he said, well, he actually said, what about President Trump with the comments on the Access Hollywood tape? And John Kelly said, you're not the president. And I think it's interesting. There are people out there who think if Trump says it, I can say it. You're going to lose your job. I'm telling you, as a lawyer, you're going to lose your job.
You can't
with these
say
kind of
it.
tweets. You can't do it.
You can't say it. Dean and Alice, thank you so much.
Thank you.
On that. Coming up next, President Trump says he wishes he had chosen a different attorney general. This